Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. We're still here. The sun still came up this morning, and we're going to do another edition of Wager Talk today. Myself and my co-host, Steve Merrill, who will be joining us shortly, are going to break down NBA with Ralph Michaels, college football with Ralph Michaels, UFC with Kyle Anthony, and basically all sports with Art DiCesare. We'll talk some NFL, college football, NBA, and NHL with the Westgate Superbook risk management supervisor, Art DiCesare, to close out the show. My big game breakdown. We're going to talk some Friday night college football, national TV action, Iowa and UCLA. And in What Bettors Learned, we'll talk about the first college football rankings and what that means for bettors, not for fans, but for bettors. We'll break that down as well. So it is truly a loaded Wednesday edition. Before I bring Ralph Michaels in, I want to let you know about the deal that we're promoting today, because this is a really good deal for you guys. I don't love it, but you guys should love it. It's called Flex Picks. This is an industry game changer right here, right now. What you do, you buy 7 days for $77, and you pick whatever capper you want each and every day. You don't have to go with anyone for any particular day. You don't have to go with anyone the whole time. You can pick and choose. Again, 7 days, all access, $77. That is a great deal. You can take advantage of that right now. Just visit WagerTalk.com/flex-picks. All right, let's bring in Ralph Michaels right now to open the show. Ralph, how are you doing this morning? Welcome to Wager Talk Today.
Doing great, Teddy. I want to say one more thing about Flex Picks. When you sign up for Flex Picks for 7 days, you're going to see the 7 days listed, and you can actually get someone in advance. Let's say, Teddy, you have a 5% on Saturday and they sign up today. They can actually click Teddy covers in for Saturday, and as soon as you release those 5% plays, they're going to get them as well. So you can plan your whole week in advance and take advantage of those line moves. Just another great feature.
Let's bring in Steve Merrill right now as well, our co-host. Steve, welcome to the show, my friend. You ready to break down, get into the first game with Ralph, or you want to say hi first? You tell me.
I was so excited about these Flex Picks. I had to make sure this offer was real because it sounds too good to be true. But if Ralph Michaels says it's real, it's real. So, Ralph, we'll get to your first game. I do love the concept, by the way, because once again, this is normally, I believe, Ralph, at least a $99 package, right? So we're getting it for $77. That works out to $11 a day. So great week to try out the Flex Picks. 7 days, different cappers every day if you'd like, or you can get with a hot guy and ride them all week. Ralph, the NBA, of course, took yesterday off because it was Election Day. Can't play basketball on Election Day, even though there were 13 NHL hockey games, apparently. But they are back at it in full force tonight. What are you doing tonight in the NBA? Let's talk about your Cleveland Cavaliers. Got to talk about your Cavs against the Pelicans. They've been one of the best teams in the league, the Cavs, so far this year.
Well, there's a lot of times it's easy to look at an NBA team that has a great record against a poor record and say, I don't mind laying it on the road. But the statistical breakdown of these two teams clearly has me on the Cavs. The Cavs, of course, 8-0 straight up. They started the season 7-0 against the spread. They failed to cover against Milwaukee in the second of back-to-backs, but that game even wasn't that close. And when I look at the Cavs, offense, they're number 2 in points per game. Defense, they're allowing only 45.3% shooting. The Pelicans, number 29, allowing 49.3% shooting. Field goal percentage, Cavs number 1, New Orleans 23. Cavs have shot 50% or higher, 6 of 8 games. Atlanta has topped 47% only twice. When you look at a team that's on a good offensive run, away favorites of 5 or more that have scored 105 points in at least 3 straight games. They have a win percentage of 65% or higher, and they can be on 0 or 1 day's rest. They are covering a very solid 58%. Then I looked at undefeated teams. In the NBA, teams with at least 7 wins and 0 losses against an opponent, any opponent, and they're a favorite of 1 or more, 35-18, 66%. And finally, you're looking at a team, I had said Atlanta before instead of New Orleans. I apologize. You're looking at a team like the Pelicans that has Williamson questionable, Hawkins questionable, Murray, McCollum, and Murphy are all out. A short bench, Cavs starters playing awesome in this new system they have. I don't mind laying the price with the Cavaliers tonight.
So I'm not going to try to make a case for New Orleans here. But my question for you is, Cleveland has been the best straight up team in the NBA to open the season, the best point spread team in the NBA to open the season. If you haven't been riding the Cavs bandwagon yet, is tonight the night to jump on them? Is this a Cleveland team that's poised to continue to cover point spreads despite their emerging betting bandwagon?
You know, Teddy, I think it's a fair price. So I understand you don't want to jump on a team after they've covered what they did, but they are off an ATS loss. And I will say this. The coach talked about how after those back-to-back Milwaukees, the team seemed a little bit tired. He did say in this morning's paper the day off was completely refreshing. So I don't mind laying it. This was an actual client play for me today, so I felt that strong about it.
Ralph Michaels breaking down a little NBA, which returns in full force. Huge card tonight on Wednesday. And Ralph, of course, we got a lot of college football going as well. We want to look at a game here for Saturday. Liberty, Middle Tennessee, a little bit of an under-the-radar matchup. What are you doing with this one on Saturday?
Well, I'm going to bring up a point that Teddy almost brought up about, do you want to jump on a hot team after their streak? Well, Liberty is 5-2 straight up, but they are a putrid 1-6 ATS team. So do I want to back a team that's 1-6 against the spread? In this case, I do not mind laying the 10.5 or 11 with Liberty. Why? Because when you look at their ATS records, 5 of those games were as a huge favorite. In fact, they are 0-5 against the spread as their 5 biggest lined games. And in those 5 games, their average line was minus 26.1 points. Again, when you're laying 26.1 points per game in 5 games, many teams are going to go 0 for ATS. I do like Slater. He's got a nice quarterback, 11-3 touchdown to interception ratio. And this is a run-first team. They average 44 rushes per game, 230 yards per game, and 5.2 yards per carry. Middle Tennessee comes in 3-6 straight up. They have 1 win versus an FBS team and 1 win, versus an FCS team, and 1 win is a 10.5-point home favorite. So again, no real quality wins with the exception of 1 upset. They're 2-7 against the spread. They're 0-4 ATS at home, failing to cover by 12.5 points per game. The Blue Raiders D, number 125 in the country. Their opponents are averaging 74 yards per game more versus the Blue Raiders than they have against their other foes. I talked about Liberty as a rush team. Well, Middle Tennessee's rush D the last 4 games, they're allowing 238 yards per game and 5.1 yards per carry. Strength of schedule is almost identical, but the yards per game diff, number 29 against number 111. The points per game diff, number 47 against number 109. And do they have a coach that's used to pulling upsets? No. Coach Derek Mason, used to coach Vanderbilt, is 1-35 straight up as a dog his last 36 games, and only 10-25-1 ATS as a dog of +2 or higher. Lastly, a quick system. A conference home dog, a conference double-digit home dog that is off a previous conference win, only 48-86, 34.5%. Give me Liberty. The Flames win and cover Saturday.
So when we look at the full season for the Blue Raiders, they've only played 1 of their last 5 games in Murfreesboro, and they won that game. That was their only game against a conference opponent at home this year, with the exception of West Kentucky, who's the class of the conference. And it's the game that they won on their home field in FBS play. Do you worry at all that maybe this home field is worth something this week, or is it, hey, they played 4 to 5 on the road, doesn't matter. They're coming back home.
No, I mean, Teddy, you picked the last game. I can go back and say, hey, listen, you were a big favorite against Southern Utah, and you lost by 3 points in game number 2. So to me, there's not a home edge. I don't perceive them as any strong home edge at all.
Ralph Michaels talking a little college football, and you said, "Give me liberty." I was waiting for "Give me liberty" or "Give me death." It sounded like that's where you were going with that. And liberty, like you said, Ralph, has been death to the point spread bettors. One of the most extreme, straight up ATS dichotomies I've seen this late into the season in quite a while in college football. And that's what you get, of course, when you get a team that was a high profile, mid-major team last year. The public starts taking notice. That game is on Saturday. And on the way out, Ralph, of course, we have to have a chart, because you are the chart master at WagerTalk.com, and also Stat Daddy, the Pin, father of Jeff, so many nicknames. But look, college basketball is here. I know we're talking college football, but I've always said that home court in college hoops, I think, sometimes is stronger in the smaller, lesser conferences. And it's not because they have a ton of people there. Like William & Mary, for example, does much better at home over the years, and there's 500 people at the games. But I think it's some of its travel, smaller arenas, and whatnot. So I'm curious, Ralph, does that hold up in college football now that we're in conference play? Big boys, MAC, SEC versus MAC. Is there a home field advantage with one conference versus the other?
Well, I'm going to post this on Twitter so you guys can take a look. And I do want to say this. Just because I show some records that are positive or negative, I'm not going to jump out and bet every MAC home team. As the MAC leads in conference home teams this year, hitting 64.3%. The SEC, as you said, Steve, home teams in the SEC, only 14 and 25 against the spread. So you see the chart. The ATS records are sorted from best to worst. On the right, you also see the over-under records. So these are conference-only games, and these are records for the home teams. So, look at the AAC, Sunbelt, USA, those three smaller conferences, the home teams are significant. And Steve, I don't know, you had mentioned college hoops. The one thing that may jump out to me is this. The travel that the Big Ten and SEC and ACC have to go through is much less stressful than those MAC teams having to drive buses for 6 hours, or go to shitty airports and have to do transfers. So I think that has something to do with it, where the smaller conferences do have that edge because of the type of travel the teams have to partake of.
Hey, Teddy, real quick, I want to just add in, one thing to point out is that these MAC teams do play a lot of weeknight games. We saw that start last night on Tuesday, and guess what? Both home teams lost straight up, but they both covered the point spread. And both games, by the way, stayed under last night. I mentioned this yesterday on the show a little bit. We've seen a lot of these Conference USA Sunbelt Tuesday and Wednesday games be extremely low scoring. So just something to keep an eye on, Teddy, in the future.
Sure. That's what we saw last night and the beginning of MACtion here in November. We love the weeknight college football. I'm in play in weeknight college football tonight. A little MACtion for the clients. Ralph Michaels, what do you have going for the clients this evening?
Big week. I have an NBA 5% play today, my first of the year. I've won 4 straight hoops 5% plays. I'm 4-1 my last 5 NBA plays. I have a college football 5% loaded for Friday. If you want to try 30 days, college hoops, NBA, NHL, college football, and NFL, Ralph199 is the code. Save $100 and get 30 days all access, all sports for $199 or just $6.63 a day. That code again, Ralph199.
That's Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com. And, of course, that chart and other great charts will be on his Twitter feed every day at CalSportsLV, at CalSportsLV on X. Follow us also on Instagram. Don't forget, thumbs up like. If you're liking the show today, click that thumbs up. Boom. Thank you. Comment on the live chat or also on the replay. Comment below. Let us know what games you like this weekend. And we, by the way, do read the comments and reply back. Subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts so you know when the free play videos are posted every day this week. And, of course, Teddy, I will have my college football top 25 video for this Saturday, as I do every week. And I always look at the AP rankings for that. Sometimes glance at the coaches poll. They vary a little bit. But now, all of a sudden, Teddy, we have a third set of rankings to look at as of last night, correct?
Sure, and these ones, in theory, are important. The first college football playoff rankings for the new 12-team playoffs came out last night, and I want to talk about it from a betting perspective. First, let's talk about the teams in the top 12. Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami, top 4. Then Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, Indiana, BYU, Notre Dame, 2-loss Alabama, and Boise. That's the top 12. From a betting standpoint, the ones I'm probably most interested in are the ones just out of the top 12. SMU, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Iowa State, Pitt, Kansas State, and Colorado round out the top 20. And then Wazoo at 7-1, Louisville, Clemson, Missouri, and Army from 21 through 25. First and foremost, relax. All of these teams still have at least 4. Most of them still have 5 games to play, including conference championship games and other step-up conference, all the end-of-season rivalries, etc. Second, I want to talk about laying points. You're in the top 4 on this list. It's not about impressive final scores. It's about W's. All right? So margin of victory does not matter for the top teams at all. If you're outside the top 12, you better believe it's about impressive final scores. It's about margins that make people notice. And here's the point. Beware the blowouts. I'm not talking about the competitive matchups, Pitt laying 7.5 or Iowa State laying 3. But when you're talking about these teams that have to impress pollsters, well, that's not a situation where you want to be taking plus 35 with some sorry dog facing SMU or Kansas State or whatever. I'm not taking Florida State plus 26 at Notre Dame this Saturday, for example. And note that the playoff rankings, the initial playoff rankings, are not power ratings. You're going to see the lower ranked team favored in plenty of games if they match up. Ole Miss is not going to be a dog to SMU, for example. But lots and lots of college football still to come. Beware the blowouts for the teams that are trying to impress. Steve?
Yeah, no question about it. I talk a lot about that also when I do the college football top 25 video. There is a motivational angle to win by margin if you got a loss or two at this point of the season. So it's something to keep an eye on because there is a human voting element still in a lot of these polls. One thing that jumped out to me, Teddy, is just the difference in some of these AP versus college football playoff rankings. You've got Army, for example, one of the only 3 undefeated teams in the top 25. They're at 25th in this power ranking, the BCS poll, whatever, college football playoff rankings, whatever it's called now. They're 18th in the AP, so that's a pretty big difference there. Of course, Oregon is number 1 in both. They got all 62 votes in the AP. Georgia got 1 vote in the coaches poll as number 2. Even though Ohio State is 2 in the rankings, Georgia is 2 in the AP in the coaches poll. And then Miami's sitting 9-0, 4th in both polls. 10 minutes, maybe if it was only 9 minutes, they'd have a loss right now after that Virginia Tech game. So how crazy is that result going to end up being maybe long-term? And, of course, it's going to probably be Clemson or Miami coming out of the ACC. So lots of college football to be played. Still got over a month to go. But the playoff rankings are officially here, and it's something to keep an eye on each week. And like Teddy said, there is a handicapping angle. And once again, I break down all the top 25 matchups every week in that video. So hit subscribe and hit the bell for an instant alert when it's available. And if you want NFL, I do the Fade the Public video, but Teddy does the opening line report, and that's already up for you. That was recorded on Monday live here on WagerTalk TV. So once again, when you subscribe, click that bell for instant alerts. All right, let's talk a little UFC Fight Night this weekend. Kyle Anthony, the fight expert at WagerTalk.com. And Kyle, a little bit of a shift, right? You're going to talk Johns and Garbrandt, right? But that's been canceled. So you put a little bit of a makeup fight for us. So start whichever one you'd like to start with. I know you got 2 you want to look at this week.
We can start with Bernardo Sopaj versus Ricky Turcios here. And in this spot here, you got Sopaj. He's a big favorite, minus 340. On the comeback here, you've got Turcios about plus 270. Now, you do have Sopaj, who is coming off a UFC debut loss, but it was on short notice and against an absolute savage in Vinicius Oliveira, where he goes out there and did have a good account of himself in the first 2 rounds, got takedowns, had some good striking, and looked pretty good. And the path here for him on Saturday is really going to be the wrestling. He's going to look to push forward. He's a pressure wrestler. He's got good scrambles. Overall, he's very well-rounded and only 24 years old. His ceiling is very high. I think he's going to consistently get better as he continually moves through his career here. But the takedowns, I do believe, are going to be there. When you look at Turcios here in this spot, he really struggles to defend takedowns overall. Over his 4 UFC fights, he's been taken down 19 times, not good overall. And one of the worst signs, I think, that, with the takedown ability and defending it, was that Kevin Natividad, who is now cut from the UFC, no longer with the promotion, was on an 0-3 run. He was able to take Turcios down 7 times. And I think that's a big red flag here when you're looking at who he's about to face and the path that he's going to take here. Also, that you got Turcios, probably why this number is so wide is that he, lacks physicality, he lacks strength, he lacks the power to really keep, Sopaj deep, keep him far away, have that space to work. This is going to be in the apex cage. I think Turcios is not going to be able to utilize the space, smaller cage. I think that's going to allow Sopaj to kind of dive in and look for those takedowns. Now, where I'm going with this play really it leans into the fact that Tercios, out of his 16 UFC fights, he's only been finished twice. And he's a guy that is very knowledgeable off of his back. He's got jiu-jitsu and he can play it safe. And I think that's where this goes, where Sopaj looking for takedowns, looking for the control time. He can work him on the feet, but I do think that Tercios can at least stay safe over the 3 rounds. And getting off the big minus 340 number here, you're looking at Sopaj via points is minus 105. I like the spot, and it's a good value spot in a probable way that he gets the victory.
So it looks to me, again, look at the WagerTalk free live odds screen. Globally, minus 200 for Sopaj at the open. Here in Vegas, minus 270. When you look at even a DraftKings, they opened less than minus 300. Now I'm seeing as high as minus 380 out there. Is this line still available at minus 105 via decision? And are you worried at all that the money's flowing a little bit too much on the favorite here?
I think that a lot of people are going to go with the path of inside the distance. I think that's why you're getting a better price here. You know, you've seen Tercios. He has certain spots where he can be hittable. You know, maybe, you know, there's spots where he's not looking as aggressive and all those things. And you do have Sopaj going to push forward. I just think that this is a spot where, yeah, this line continues to swell up here. Money is pouring in on Sopaj. I think it's a little bit of recency bias where you're seeing that last fight, tough fight against Oliveira. He made it close here, but I think that the 105 line is available overseas, and there is a book here as well. I do think that he has the ability to just kind of stay pace, top control, heavy top pressure, and bank rounds over the 3 rounds.
It's Kyle Anthony talking Fight Night with us for this Saturday, November the 9th. And of course, Kyle is a fight expert at WagerTalk.com. He also posts a lot of free plays every week on your page, along with multiple best bets. And you do quite well because you do play some underdogs. And I know you're giving us a little makeup fight here because you were going to talk John's Garbrandt, but that's been canceled. The good news is for the viewers, they get a nice little priced underdog here for free on the show today. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so in this other fight here, we've got another favorite here, Ranieri de Riddler. He is minus 300. On the other side here, you've got, Gerald Mearshart here, plus 240. Forgot who was even talking about. But you do have de Ridder here, who is a 2-division champion from ONE FC. He's coming over, making his UFC debut. I think that's why this line is swelling a little bit. The other side, you've got Mearshart, who is a UFC veteran, good grappler, and just kind of hung around in the UFC for a very long time and does get some wins, does take some losses. Now, de Ridder here, in this spot opened at about a minus 250, and money has consistently come in. I thought even the minus 250 line was a little wide, but when you're looking at it, I do get it. You know, de Ridder again, you know, he's a guy, 2-division champion, looks great, 17-2 record, big for the division. He also does have some strong grappling. I think the issue here really for de Ridder is the fact this is probably going to be a full-on grappling match, and most people that fight Mearshart are not looking to take this fight to the ground because of how high level he is on the ground. Out of his 37 pro victories, 29 are by submission here. He has the most submission victories in the division, in the UFC. And this is the reason why most guys want to stay at distance, work at range, sprawl and brawl. Work the submission, work the striking game, stay away from the submission game. And then this spot here, I just don't think that de Ridder, is going to really do that. He's a pure grappler. He's going to look for takedowns. He's going to go right into the wheelhouse of Mearshart. Yes, de Ridder does have some wrestling ability, some grappling ability, all those things. But I do play into the fact that Mearshart is going to have a lot of success there overall. I like the way that he scrambles. I like the way that he hunts for submissions. A lot of times he's not the guy to able to get the takedowns, where he has a 36% takedown success rate. De Ridder's going to be the one initiating these takedowns, and I think that plays right into it. And also the fact that de Ridder is also not some young rising prospect coming over from another organization. He's 34 years old. You've got Mearshart, who's 36. This isn't some high-level guy that came over and he's young and he's rising. This is the other way. Minus 300 on a guy that probably has his toughest stylistic matchup here. I think this line is too wide. And lastly, his last fight for de Ridder in ONE FC, he literally gave up on the ground. The fight was on the ground. His opponent got up and he just laid there and they called the fight. To me, that is really a bad sign here. We're about to fight a tough grappler in Mershard. I like this plus number here at plus 240. I also do like submission is around plus 500. I think that's worth a sprinkle as well and could be a likely path for him.
Mearshart, a live dog. UFC action on Saturday, says Kyle Anthony. Kyle, what do you have to promote right now at WagerTalk.com? UFC has certainly been a profit center for your clients. Talk about it. Tell us what else you have going.
Yeah, so we only have about 5 UFC events this year, which is pretty incredible. We are sitting at about 70 units in profit for the year. We are heading towards another profitable year for clients, and got to keep that going. Number one in ROI at WagerTalk in all sports. We're really again finding good opportunities, place our money in strong positions, beating market moves, good plus money, really finding good spots here. Have a 4% play up for this weekend, and looking to cash and looking to keep it going and finish 2024 strong.
It's Kyle Anthony, and I always talk about diversifying your portfolio, treating this as a true investment long term, and adding some UFC to the mix, especially with a guy that wins consistently, is a great way to do it. Kyle Anthony, fight expert at WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, we're going to talk to Art DiCesare in a moment from the Westgate in Las Vegas, Nevada, get a view from the other side of the counter. But first, let's talk a little college football once again. A lot of Friday night games. I'll be doing a solo video on the San Diego State game, and that'll be up later today or tomorrow here on the channel. And you've got a little breakdown here of one of the Fox national TV game for Friday night.
Absolutely. Big game breakdown. Let's talk Fox national TV, a Friday night. Iowa traveling out to the West Coast to take on UCLA, and looking at the Wager Talk live odds screen right now. A lot of books down to -5 on the Hawkeyes. They opened 6.5. At many places. Total sitting 44/44.5 range. So we talk about Iowa. Iowa's been really good under Ferentz in November. They're 19-2, dating back to 2019 this month. They're coming off a game in which they ran for 329 yards against Wisconsin. That's the most that they've run for in any game since 2019. They had 4 different players run for more than 50 or more yards. They scored 79 points in the last 2 games, the Iowa Hawkeyes have, with junior quarterback Brendan Sullivan behind center. All of a sudden, this is an offense that's working. Caleb Johnson has been the best running back in college football this side of Aston Junty. He's averaged 7.8 yards per carry, and he's faced a bevy of quality defenses already. Of course, when we talk about UCLA's run defense, it stands out to me, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And of course, Iowa, when it comes to making plays defensively. Since 2009, they have 240 interceptions. That's the second most in the country. 35 pick sixes during that span. So certainly Iowa team that's very capable of scoring on all 3 units, offense, defense, and special teams. Not a team I'm looking to step in front of. All that being said, this Bruins team very quietly, way underneath the radar. They're number 14 in the country. They've allowed only 3.3 yards per carry. That's between Ohio State and Georgia, just to put that number in perspective, all right, where they are against the run. They're 5-1 against the spread their last 6 games, all as an underdog. They had an outright upset win at Rutgers before the bye and at Nebraska after the bye. That's the first 2 games of the year. They've scored more than 17 points. All of a sudden, this offense is starting to click. That being said, Rutgers is riddled with injuries. Nebraska is a fragile team and in the midst of a losing streak in a way that Iowa isn't. And, of course, Nebraska was coming off that super intense game against Ohio State. Iowa's coming off a blowout. UCLA offensively remains limited. All right, I know they've been better the last couple of games. I'm not convinced they're going to move the ball against this Iowa defense. I don't trust Ethan Gabers in a game where he's facing quality stop unit. And yet, at the same time, when we look at UCLA against the run, I'm not in a rush to lay it here. There's a reason the sharp money's coming for Iowa in this game. So where do we settle on? We settle on the under in a game between an underrated UCLA defense that's playing very well right now and a dominant Iowa defense that's capable of shutting everybody down. So do I expect touchdowns in bunches? No, I do not. Look for the Hawkeyes and the Bruins to stay under the number. 44.5 is a railing number. If you shop around, you can find 45s right now. No urgency to get on board with this under if you're interested in making the same bet that I'm interested in making. There you have it. We appreciate the likes, the comments. Tell us what you think below. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Man, I love talking Iowa over-unders, as you know, Teddy. And boy, did I ride the unders last year. They went 13-2 under last season. And one of those overs, if you recall, was by like 6 points against Michigan State, in which there was a defensive pick six or a fumble return or something by Michigan State. Otherwise, it would have been 14-1 to the under last year. Now you look this season, depending on your lines or whatnot, they're 8-1 to the over. The only under was that Ohio State game when they scored 7 points. So it really has been a fascinating case study for me the last 2 years looking at Iowa Hawkeye football. Good rushing attack, but they're very limited throwing the ball still this season. So I think that 8-1 over run is a little bit phony. So I love where you're going with that. Glad to see you using the total in the Iowa Hawkeye game. That makes my day. And that, of course, is Friday night on Fox. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit more college football here with Art DiCesare from the Westgate in Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada. And, of course, the Westgate Superbook is only in Nevada, but the Superbook itself, Art, is in multiple states now. So check your locality. I think Iowa's one of them, if I'm not mistaken, right? I know Colorado. I think Virginia here has them. A lot of states have Superbook now.
Unfortunately, not anymore.
What? What happened?
Yeah. You missed it.
Wow.
Damn.
Damn.
You missed
my
it. That was
chance.
over the summer.
Damn. We'll talk about that later then. That's news to me.
So, I mean, when we talk about the business decision Westgate made, the Superbook made, they're like, look, we've been big boys in Nevada for a long time. Let's be big boys in Nevada. And that's what they continue to be. So glad to have Art DiCesare from the Westgate Superbook on board. But when it comes to the broader picture across the country.
You're in Iowa and Colorado, Teddy, you got to go to Nevada now to bet the Superbook. So even more of a reason to go visit Art and call for him by name.
Coming to.
Definitely worth coming. Teddy, I was going to ask Art real quick about college. While we're talking college football, let's stick with it. Art, these MAC games on Tuesday night, I mean, are you going to get much action here the next couple? What about the last few weeks with the Sun Belt and Conference USA? I mean, are all the Sam Houston State and Florida International fans coming out of the woodworks on Tuesday and Wednesday nights in the Superbook?
It's weird. It's great to have the games because they do take some action, but I don't know. It hasn't been as pronounced as maybe years in past. It just, I don't know. Maybe people, and it's weird to say, maybe people are like oversaturated with football every day. Like, we literally have a football game every day. So, also, too, with all the other sports going, obviously college basketball in the mix now. You got NBA, you got NHL. Obviously, baseball just ended. There are obviously other options and other things for people to bet on. I don't want to say that we don't take bets. I mean, some of this early action stuff, there's really nothing to report for tonight, but looking at Thursday, Appalachian State's now a slight favorite, -1 at Coastal Carolina. Teddy had mentioned the UCLA game. We took a lot of UCLA money early at 6.5 and 6, and despite that, we took some sharp money back on Iowa. We'll probably need Iowa in the game just because of the early flood of UCLA money. And then also on Friday, we took a lot of Rice money. Sharp money at +10.5 and +10 at Memphis. Rice is now catching 9 points in that game. So that's kind of the pre-Saturday stuff that we're seeing.
And Rice, of course, pulled a pretty big outright upset last week and took wise guy support in that game as well. Do you see teams like that in college football every year that the public is not paying any attention to whatsoever, but the wise guys are pounding week after week? Rice certainly stands out on that list. Anyone else stand out to you like that right now in college football, Art?
Sam Houston State was a team early in the season that felt like it caught a lot of action. But you're right, Teddy. There are always teams. Obviously, with the amount of college football teams you have, the public is not going to notice Rice. And they're especially not going to notice Rice on a Friday night when they're out at dinner and having drinks. They're just not going to be there. But the sharp guys, the guys who are really into it, they're going to find spots with those teams. So that's why you see a 1.5 move to Rice. We're normally on a game like that. If that game's sitting on Saturday, maybe you don't see that type of move.
So let's talk about Saturday's college football card. Of course, we want to talk everything with you today, but we're talking college football right now. So talk about what you've seen in early week action, what games on all the parlay cards, who do the Joes seem to like, and who are the pros pounding in early week action.
Absolutely. Some more sharp stuff for Saturday. Navy in South Florida has seen pretty good over money. We opened the total 56. took an over bet from a sharp that we respect. We moved to 57, and then we saw another group come in and take over 57. So we're now at 58. UCF +4 has taken money at Arizona State. That game is now down to 3. Arizona State's dealing with some injuries, so UCF was a very popular side for the Sharps. And a surprising one, I think it's just a number. They took Nevada, +25.5 at Boise. We're now down to 24 on that game. So, obviously Boise is a team who you guys were talking about the playoff. They got a Heisman guy, but there was a lot of Nevada support early in the week. And then the public's on 3 kind of short favorites. They're going to lay 4 with BYU at Utah, and then they're going to lay name brands. They love to take name brands, especially in the field goal range. Bama -3 at LSU. Obviously, LSU's a name brand, but they love Bama more, and they're going to lay the short one with Georgia, -2.5 at Ole Miss, and obviously those are 2 of the best games, if not the 2 best games of the weekend. So you saw some public support for those 3 those 3 field goal favorites.
Talking a little college football with Art DiCesare. We're going to talk some NFL in a moment on the way out. We're going to tease the NFL, make people wait, Art, because I am curious to hear about the public's October, man. I haven't talked to you in a couple months. It's good to see you. It's been at least a month because the public was in fuego in the month of October in the NFL, and I know I haven't talked to you about that, so it's been a while. But I got to ask you about basketball. Thank goodness the NBA took Tuesday off. We never could have the elections otherwise, but they're back in full throttle tonight on Wednesday with 12 games. I don't know how the NHL did it. They had 13 games last night, and it was able to happen still and still get an election in. But thank goodness those Canadians played yesterday. College basketball, very light last night as well. Huge Monday. Not many great matchups, but I'm curious, do you get any kind of handle this week in the college hoops? How did Monday go? Interesting game tonight, by the way, in the very top of the rotation. Campbell, Virginia. Not my Virginia Cavaliers without Tony Bennett, who, suddenly steps down a few weeks ago. So that is an intriguing matchup for me. But how's college hoops going to be here in the month of November? How was Monday? And also I'll talk about the NBA, of course. I know that's the big boy right now.
Monday is for me, I love it. It's an opening of one of my favorite sports. But I'll say this, Monday and that opening day of college basketball is one of the most challenging days you have in the risk room. With all those games, to hang all those games, all the extra games, all the money lines, all the first halves, and then to book all the second halves, which we do. It's a challenging day. It's a day we actually have to bring an extra guy or 2 back to the risk room because it's not a normal Monday. But you see tremendous action. And we always talk about a sport like college basketball. Maybe the public doesn't get there till around conference play or after the Super Bowl as they gear up for March. But the guys who are into it, they are into it on the first night. And that was no different this Monday. Looking at some of the games, and I've said this for years, they lay big favorites. UConn -34 up to 35. LSU -22 up to 23.5. You mentioned your UVA team. They're still going to bet unders in UVA games. UVA was 133 in an opener. It's now 129. So seeing pretty good under money come in there. And a little bit of Pepperdine money as well from -3.5 to -5.5. That's all sharp early action for Wednesday in college basketball.
When you talk about these lines, do you get two-way action on anything in college hoops right now? Or is the action pretty much one way on every game and you just have to, hang in there and win half the decisions and then you'll do fine?
It's a great question, Teddy. This is how we get the two-way. When we move aggressively on a big favorite, let's say, you look at Monday, maybe Xavier is, -21. They go all the way up to like 26, 26.5. You do get the people, if we're maybe a half a point high, people will buy back. People will look for middles. We'll get some groups who actually look for the move and then take the other side. Same thing on totals, because totals can move 3, 4, 5, 6 points. So you see a lot of that, and you just don't want to get middled on those games. You don't want to lose both sides. So that's where you see the buyback. But usually in the beginning, you're fighting against those sharps, and that's okay because, it's just we understand that's how it's going to be early in the college basketball season.
And what did your Monday look like in terms of a net result? Was it a winning day for the Westgate Superbook when it came to college basketball, or did the wise guys hand you your butt on a platter?
No, it actually was a decent day, and, it's tough, and even for the wise guys, as good as they are at this college basketball, and we all know college basketball probably the wisest of the wise guy sports. If we're being honest, there's just so many games, and if a guy's coming out and, betting 15 or 20 games, he's not going to go 17-3. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it's too much volume for even the best players. So we didn't do too bad on a Monday. Like I said, for us, it's more of the challenge of hanging all the games and hanging all the halftimes. That's really where we have the challenge on an opening college basketball day.
Yeah, Arthur, I appreciate the fact that you guys do put the numbers up in all the other sports books, right? Because I've said the one edge that you have as a bettor is that you can pick and choose. I didn't play anything Monday. I was looking at a few of them. It's just so hard with the transfer portal now. But you guys really are kind of going out there naked a lot of times in these games early in the season with that uncertainty. So we do appreciate it. And it's a good transition now to the NFL because just let people know, first of all, the limits on college hoops Monday versus the NFL this Sunday on a side or total.
That's a complete difference, obviously. When you're talking a college basketball side, you're talking, a dime or two dimes total, 500 to a dime in that range. Obviously, extra games, the 6-digit college basketball games are going to be even a little bit less. And, you can come in and bet an NFL side on a Sunday and, you could probably get, high 5 figures on that type of game. So, obviously, a complete difference when you're talking about the two sports.
Yeah, so put that into perspective. If you can get 50 to 100,000 on NFL's side and maybe get up to 1,000, maybe less on an extra game, you're talking about a 50 to 100 times less bet on college hoops than the NFL. If that doesn't put in perspective where the sharps are probably winning and where the sports book's a little nervous, tells you all you need to know. So once again, that's why it's so important to diversify as a sports bettor and pick your spots. Arthur, speaking of the NFL, I mentioned October. I mean, the public, in my video that I do every week here, the public video, public went 18-6. They were 9-15 the first 4 weeks, and they went 18-6 the next 4 weeks. How do you see November playing out, and what's the NFL been like for you guys the last few weeks?
Yeah, just real quick, I got my numbers saying favorites 96-56
wow.
since the beginning of October. How's that been for you guys? Talk about this past weekend and tell us where the action's coming.
Yeah, and you're both right, Steve and Teddy. It's been nothing but favorites. And we sit there in the risk room every week and we look at these 10 a.m. Vegas games, 1 p.m. Eastern games, and we're like, wow, the favorites were 7-1 again, or, they were 8-1-1, or it's unbelievable. We've done really well in college football. We've continued to be fine. We've had maybe, 1 or 2 bad weeks in college football, but continued to turn a profit every Saturday. It's been tough on Sundays. It's been really hard to find Sundays where we're winning games. And it's not like it comes down to 1 or 2 games. It just feels like the public wins on all these favorites. And that's going to tie into moneyline parlays, and that's going to tie into teasers and teaser cards, which the public's going to come in and play. So hasn't been that great, but obviously halfway through the year, a lot of time to turn it around. When you look at the NFL games this week, Thursday, you've seen really good over money come in already on the Ravens-Bengal game. That was over 51. Sharps took it. And then even the public got in on it at 52 and 52.5. We're now 53. We'll need the under in the game. Good two-way action on the game. Laying 6 with the Ravens, even taking 6.5 with the Bengals. We are 6. Sharps are on New England +7 at the Bears. They're on the Eagles -6.5 all the way to 7.5 against Dallas, who's decimated. They've taken the Texans +4 and even 3.5, even though we're still at 3.5, which is a little surprising. I feel like we'll need the Lions in the game talking about all those favorites because I feel like the Lions are just a team that the public likes to bet every week. It's not been the case so far. It's been sharp action on Houston. Broncos have taken a lot of sharp money, +9.5 at Kansas City. We're now 8 on that game. Public is very heavy on San Francisco. That's going to be probably the most popular money line and teaser leg so far. And Washington. They're with the Commanders every week. They're going to lay the 3 at home against Pittsburgh. Even though Pittsburgh usually is a very popular underdog, hasn't been the case so far. So, public money on San Francisco and Washington.
Strong info every week from Art DiCesare. He brings it on Wager Talk Today. We appreciate him every Wednesday. Art, talk about what's going on at the Westgate Superbook right now and what you'd like to promote. Of course, you can follow Art on Twitter at ArtDice21 on X.
Yeah, as always, guys, come down to the Westgate. We got a lot of exciting stuff going on, especially with our pricing. I've talked about our NBA sides are -109 day of game. Never going to be -109 in an overnight. But the second that, day turns to the day of games, -109. On Mondays at noon, we flip our pricing on football, -109 on college football, -108 on the NFL. So a lot of exciting stuff happening there. And we'll probably look to do some exciting stuff too with college basketball. I don't know about the pricing stuff, but we're thinking about a couple of things to maybe put in the works. So stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah, minus 109 is just fantastic. Once again, if you're getting the same line at another book or the Superbook, why would you not play it at the Superbook at minus 109 instead of minus 110 or higher? So it's a great offer. Once again, if you go down to the Superbook in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Westgate, say hi to Art DiCesare, call him out from behind the counter in a nice way, and let him know that you saw him here on WagerTalk TV. Follow, once again, at ArtDice21. Great handle on X. Teddy, thanks for letting me sit in. The Prez apparently will be back tomorrow. He had a soundboard issue. Well, he had ringing in his head. Apparently that was a soundboard issue. You never know, though, with the Prez. But he's supposed to be back tomorrow. I think he got an overnight delivery. If not, I'm on standby. Once again, Flex 7. Normally it's $99. It's just $77 this week. You can get any capper $11 a day, and you can mix and match all week long. Each day somebody different. It's a great offer. Check that out right now. That 7-day Flex Pass. It's a fantastic promotion, and we have it going right now at WagerTalk.com. Steve Merrill, Teddy Covers. Check us out here. We got a lot of free play videos throughout the week as well, so smash that like button, comment below, hit subscribe, and click that bell for instant alerts. And Teddy, take us home.
Sure. Enjoy the games. Best of luck. We'll do it again tomorrow. Cheers.